What makes a person capable of chilling charm one moment and cold-blooded cruelty the next? Is the label psychopath just a shortcut for calling someone evil? Today we'll peel back the myths, the science, and the unsettling truth about the darkness that lives inside some of us. Are psychopaths truly malignant monsters or just misunderstood brains? Based on decades of neuroscience, forensic psychology, and real-world case studies, we can separate the drama from the data. Psychopathy is a personality construct, not a crime. Popular culture paints it as synonymous with pure evil, but science tells a more nuanced story. In the next few minutes, you'll learn what psychologists actually mean when they talk about psychopathy, the tools they use to measure it, how the media distorts the picture, why only some individuals become dangerous, and what separates a functional, high-functioning psychopath from a malignant one. Let's start at the beginning. What exactly is psychopathy? Psychopathy is defined as a cluster of interpersonal, affective, and behavioral traits measured by the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, a 20-item scale that rates things like superficial charm, grandiosity, manipulativeness, shallow affect, lack of remorse, impulsivity, and a parasitic lifestyle. Those who score high tend to glide through social situations with a charismatic veneer, while underneath, they experience a markedly reduced emotional depth. Neuroimaging studies show that the fear and empathy circuits in the brain work differently. The amygdala, the region that helps us feel fear and recognize distress in others, often shows a blunted response, while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and impulse control, can be underactive or miswired. This combination creates a person who can calculate risk without the usual gut-level alarm bells. Psychopathy is not listed as a standalone disorder in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, but it overlaps heavily with Antisocial Personality Disorder. While all psychopaths display the interpersonal and affective traits of the checklist, not every person with antisocial personality disorder meets the full psychopathic profile. In the general population, roughly 1% score high enough to be considered psychopathic, but the prevalence climbs dramatically in prisons, reaching somewhere between 15 and 20% of incarcerated individuals. That disparity shows how environment and opportunity shape outcomes. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to glide through life without feeling guilt, you're not alone. The answer lies in a complex interplay of genetics, early brain development, and life experiences. Some high-scoring individuals become successful CEOs, surgeons, or politicians, using their fearlessness and charm to climb ladders that most people would never dare to touch. Others, however, channel those same traits into manipulation, fraud, or even violent crime. Understanding why the path diverges is key to separating myth from reality. What do you think about this blend of biology and behavior?
If this is opening new perspectives for you, hit that subscribe button and let's keep exploring together. But the story doesn't end with biology.
The way we picture the psychopathic mind has been shaped by movies, true crime documentaries, and sensational headlines that love a good villain. Think of the charming serial killer who smiles while committing horror, or the cold corporate shark who steps on anyone to get ahead. These images create a shortcut in our brains. Psychopath equals monster. Yet the reality is far messier. When a film shows a sleek, well-dressed predator, it taps into a deep fear of hidden danger. The narrative is simple. There is a clear bad guy, and the audience can feel safe by rooting against them. That simplicity, however, wipes out the nuance that scientists have uncovered. In research labs, psychopathy is measured on a scale, not as a black and white label. A person can score moderately high and still lead a law-abiding life, using their boldness and lack of anxiety to thrive in high-pressure environments like finance or emergency medicine.
Those same traits, when paired with impulsivity, a chaotic upbringing, or a lack of supportive relationships, can steer a person toward deception, fraud, or even violent crime.
So why do some high scorers become dangerous while others do not? The answer lies in a combination of three major factors: genetics, early environment, and the opportunities they encounter later in life. Genetic studies suggest that certain variations in brain development genes increase the likelihood of the traits associated with psychopathy. However, genes alone do not dictate destiny.
Children who grow up in unstable homes, experience neglect, or are exposed to chronic stress often have their emotional circuits further dulled. In such settings, the natural fearlessness that might have helped them succeed becomes a tool for manipulation and aggression. Opportunity also plays a pivotal role.
In a supportive community, a charismatic individual with low fear may become a charismatic leader, a surgeon who stays calm under pressure, or an entrepreneur who takes calculated risks.
In contrast, in environments where power is gained through intimidation, or where there are few legitimate avenues for advancement, that same fearlessness can manifest as bullying, extortion, or more extreme violent acts.
It is the interaction of internal wiring with external circumstance that determines the path. Let's look at a few illustrative cases that highlight this spectrum. One well-known example is the former CEO who built a multi-billion-dollar empire, praised for his confidence and ability to close deals that others thought impossible. Colleagues described him as magnetic, unflappable, and relentless.
Behind the scenes, however, former employees recounted a pattern of exploiting loopholes, disregarding ethical standards, and treating staff as disposable tools.
While his actions were undeniably harmful, they stopped short of physical violence, illustrating a successful, psychopathic profile that thrives in cutthroat business cultures. On the other end of the scale, we have the infamous serial offender whose name still dominates headlines decades after his crimes. In his early years, he displayed classic signs: manipulation, shallow affect, and a fascination with power.
Yet his environment was riddled with abuse, abandonment, and a lack of any stable attachment figure. Coupled with a predisposition for impulsivity, these factors created a perfect storm that propelled him toward extreme violence.
His case underscores how the same underlying traits, when amplified by trauma and a lack of social constraints, can become lethal. It is also worth noting that not all violent acts stem from psychopathy.
Many individuals commit crimes out of desperation, mental illness, or situational stress without possessing the core psychopathic traits.
This distinction matters because it shapes how society should respond. If a behavior is rooted in a personality structure that includes reduced empathy and remorse, punitive measures alone may fail to address the underlying risk. Conversely, if the act is driven by temporary circumstances, rehabilitation and support can be more effective.
Research into treatment options reveals a sobering reality. Traditional talk therapy often struggles to engage psychopathic individuals because they may not see a need to change.
Their lack of guilt means they are less motivated by conventional therapeutic goals. However, newer approaches that focus on behavior modification, skill building, and structured environments have shown modest success, especially when combined with strict supervision and clear consequences. For instance, programs in correctional settings that reward prosocial behavior and teach strategic self-control have reduced recidivism among some participants. Understanding psychopathy also raises profound ethical questions. If a person's brain wiring limits their capacity for empathy, how responsible are they for their actions? The legal system grapples with this dilemma, often weighing the line between culpability and diminished capacity. Some argue that even with reduced effect, individuals can still understand the difference between right and wrong, and thus should be held accountable. Others suggest that society should focus more on prevention, identifying at-risk youth, providing stable environments, and offering early interventions that could redirect the trajectory before it solidifies. What does all this mean for the everyday viewer? First, it invites us to question our instinctive judgments. When you encounter a charismatic, risk-taking individual, resist the urge to label them immediately as evil or dangerous. Look for the broader context, their background, their choices, and the environments that shape them. Second, it reminds us that the traits labeled as psychopathic can be a double-edged sword. In the right setting, they can drive innovation, leadership, and resilience.
In the wrong setting, they can fuel exploitation and harm.
Finally, this knowledge empowers us to recognize warning signs early.
Sudden charm paired with a history of manipulative behavior, a pattern of breaking rules without remorse, and a persistent lack of emotional depth are red flags.
If you notice these patterns in someone you know, consider encouraging professional evaluation, especially if the behavior begins to affect others negatively. Now that we've unpacked the science, the media myths, and the real-world implications, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think society should treat psychopathy primarily as a mental health issue, a criminal risk, or something in between? Have you ever encountered someone whose traits seem to fit this profile, and how did it affect your perception of them? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your insights add depth to this conversation.
If you found this deep dive useful, give the video a thumbs up. It helps the channel reach more curious minds like yours.
And if you haven't already, consider subscribing so you won't miss future explorations into the hidden corners of human behavior. Your support fuels the research and storytelling that bring these complex topics to light. In closing, remember that the human brain is a tapestry of strengths and vulnerabilities. Psychopathy is not a monolithic curse, but a nuanced constellation of traits that can manifest in many ways. By peeling back the layers of myth and looking at the evidence, we can move toward a more compassionate, informed, and safer society. Thanks for watching, and until the next episode, stay inquisitive and keep questioning the stories we think we know.